Is this finally going to be Middlesbrough's season? Michael Carrick's side are on a real hot streak of form right now. They've scored 15 goals in their last 3 championship matches, and they're going to be the focus of today's video. Borough fans, I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. What have you made of your season so far? And general fans of the championship as well, how do you rate Middlesbrough's chances of promotion this season? Because let's face it, after what was a really inconsistent start to the season, they've got their act together in recent weeks, and as of recording, now sit 5th in the championship table. They've got 27 points on the board after 16 matches. If they were to continue that pace between now and the end of the season, they'd finish the campaign with 77 points, which would be good enough for a top 6 finish. But I think there's a lot of people out there that think if they turn the screw a little bit, they could potentially be competing for the top 2 this season, which does seem like a bit of an open race right now. Now, probably the biggest result that Middlesbrough have actually picked up this season was that 1-0 win they had at the Riverside against Sheffield United. The game took place back in October. It was Latte Lath who popped up with a late winner, and since that point they've been on a real hot streak. Since beating Sheffield United in October, this is what the championship table shapes up like. And Middlesbrough, I mean, you can see here, only Millwall have accumulated more points than Borough have in that time frame. They've won 4 of their last 6, scored 19 goals in that time, and in their last 3 games in particular, they've really started putting sides to the sword. And even in their inconsistencies at the start of the season, a lot of the underlying numbers suggested that this was always going to be the case with Middlesbrough. They were creating a lot of chances at the start of the season. They just weren't quite burying teams like I think we all thought they were capable of. And speaking of those underlying numbers, going off a lot of the attacking metrics so far this season, Middlesbrough have been the best team in the championship this far into the year. They've been the best team in the championship based on XG. They've been the best team in the championship based on non-penalty XG as well. They're top of the championship for shots on target so far with 81. That's more than any other championship club, and they're only second to Leeds United in terms of the total number of shots they've taken, and obviously goals that they've actually scored. They're top of that as well with 28. Now, in terms of Middlesbrough and their overall squad, I think we all knew coming into this season that it's a very talented group of players. I mean, we can see here by their total market value, it is the 6th most valuable squad in the championship. That is including the value of some of the players they have on loan and things like that. But most of us were expecting Borough to mix it with a lot of these big boys in at the top end of the championship, and I think that off recent showing, they're proving they're more than capable of that. Statistically, here have been some of their top performing players so far this season, ranked by their average match ratings up until this point. Obviously, someone who's really caught the eye in recent weeks especially has been Finn Azaz. He was absolutely brilliant in that win over Oxford over the weekend. So far this season, he's chipped in with 5 goals and 7 assists. Ben Doak we'll get to speaking about a little bit later in the video, but really been impressed with him so far this season. It's always seemed like in recent years, I mean, under Carrick especially, Middlesbrough have played the loan market really well, and a player like Doak, who's now fully recovered from a bit of a injury hit 18 months before this season, he's now been absolutely flying for them. After what was a really inconsistent start to the season for Emmanuel Latte Lath, he's starting to get involved with the goals a little bit more now. And I actually think Middlesbrough have not only one of the most potent forward lines in the championship at this point in time, but Michael Carrick's got one of the most varied and dynamic strike forces to choose between. When you consider they've got the likes of Finn Azaz, Riley McGree, who's not played consistently so far this season, obviously someone who has been really troubled by injuries throughout his whole career, but when he's fully fit and he gets a run of games in the side, I've got no doubts in my mind he's one of the best creative outlets in the championship. I mean, in just 650 minutes of football this season, he's already picked up 5 assists. You've got Tommy Conway in that squad now, who, like I say, despite being a super sub on quite a few occasions, he's already chipped in with 6 goals so far. Delano Borgzog, who obviously came in over the summer, I totally get can be a very frustrating player at times. His decision making isn't always the best. Sometimes he can be a little bit selfish and things like that. But in recent matches in particular, I think Borough fans have seen what he's capable of. Obviously, we saw some of those flashes from last season while he was at Huddersfield. He had quite a few standout performances during that season, didn't he? You've got Micah Hamilton, who's still being bedded into this side. Most of his minutes have come off the bench so far this season. And also Marcus Forss as well, when he's fully fit and gets a run run of games in a championship side, I mean, he can be one of the most deadliest forwards in the league as well. So considering he's only played 40 minutes so far this season, they've still got him to throw back into the mix. I think it's very encouraging from a Middlesbrough point of view, especially when it comes to those attacking players. Speaking of Finazaz and why I have been so impressed with him, especially of his performances of late, he's been the second best creative player in the Championship so far this season, only trailing Luton's Alfie Doherty in terms of key passes so far this season. 44 chances he's created for his teammates in just 16 appearances this season. I mean, no doubt he'll be amongst the top assisters come the end of the season. You've got Emmanuel Latte-Lath, who's now finally in the race for the Golden Boot after what was a really frustrating start to the season. He was missing quite a few chances. There was one point where Carrick obviously took him out of the starting 11, but it seems like he's now got his confidence back. Maybe that goal against Sheffield United turned out to be a bit of a turning point in his season too. But he's got 5 goals now in his last 3 Championship appearances, including a hat-trick last time against Oxford. And then you've also got someone like Ben Doak, who without a doubt is one of the most entertaining players to watch in the Championship right now. Whenever I get the chance to tune into a Middlesbrough match, he's always someone who's capable of getting you up and out of your seat. The Liverpool loanee, he's been one of the best and most efficient dribblers in the Championship so far this season. And when you have that mix of profiles in the final third, like Carrick has to rely on at the moment, you can attack teams in different sorts of ways. And I mean, as has been the case recently, there's just so much potential there to score so many goals at the moment. Based on the current number of goals Middlesbrough have scored up until this point, they're projected to score 83 goals this season, and that's despite fluffing their lines in quite a few matches earlier on in the campaign. I'd be willing to have a bet right now, come the end of the season, I think Middlesbrough are going to score more than they're currently projected to. The reason I think Middlesbrough are a really interesting study as well is because they've been a bit of a frustrating side, really. We can look at their historical finishes here. Generally speaking, they've always tended to be in and around the top 6 hunt, with the 2019/20 season being the exception here when they finished 17th. But ever since their relegation from the Premier League in 2017, they finished 5th, 7th, 17th, 10th, 7th, 4th, 8th, 5th. Is obviously where they're at in the table at the moment. They've always been in and amongst the picture, but they've never quite been able to get over the line. During a Championship campaign this season, which to me personally does feel really open, I think Middlesbrough have got every chance this season, not only for competing for a place in the playoffs, but maybe even a place in the top 2. Now, it probably will be a question of whether or not they can tighten up defensively as to whether or not they'll be good enough to challenge for a spot in the top 2. While Middlesbrough have scored more goals than any other side in the top 6 right now, they've also conceded more goals than any other team in the top 6, and by quite some distance. You know, you've got the likes of Burnley here, Sheffield United, who have only conceded single digits so far this season, and Borough have obviously shipped 19 goals, but the way they play, they do tend to leave themselves a little bit exposed at times. But I can't help but feel like they're one of the most entertaining sides to watch in the league right now. They're scoring a lot of goals. It feels like a lot of their forwards are really clicking into gear at a crucial point of the season, this December period where we will be playing a lot of football. I think there's a good chance that Middlesbrough go on a really good run of form here. Now, obviously, talking about Middlesbrough, this next batch of games will be absolutely crucial for them over this festive period. Tomorrow they face Blackburn Rovers at the Riverside. They then follow that up with another game at home on Saturday against Hull City. If they come out of these 2 matches with at least 4 points, I know Middlesbrough will want to win both of them, but I still think that 4 points from these 2 games, given the results they've had recently, would be a decent return. They set themselves up really well going into these 3 matches here, which I think will be maybe a little bit of the making or breaking of Middlesbrough this season, and whether or not they are capable of challenging for a spot in the top 2. They have back-to-back games here, away at Turf Moor and then away at Ellen Road. If they can put in a performance at both of those grounds, I mean, obviously we've already seen them going to Ellen Road this season and wiping the floor with Leeds United, albeit that was only in the cup. But if they come through those 2 games with a respectable amount of points, with some decent performances behind them as well, and then they manage to maybe get something, maybe all 3 points against a tough Middlesbrough side at the Riverside there, they're setting themselves up really well, aren't they? Before we go into the new year as well, they play Burnley at the Riverside, so they play Burnley in quite quick succession there, both home and away, which will be quite interesting. A side who are obviously quite close with them at the moment, doing things in a very different style, not scoring many goals right now, but not conceding either. I think like most fans in the Championship, Middlesbrough have really caught my eye recently on the back of those 3 most recent performances. But Borough fans, what do you think is realistic right now? And how many points do you realistically see yourselves picking up over this sort of festive period here? Because, I mean, this cluster of 3 matches here is looking like a big part of your season. But there you guys have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video, and I welcome some of your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. What have you made of Middlesbrough this season, and what are their realistic prospects for the year as well? If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Do leave all your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you are new around here as well, make sure to subscribe for more. Other than that though guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.